So, Trigger, thanks so much for taking the time today, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad to be here.
So, I think a lot of people would call your rise within the StarCraft 2 community, somewhat meteoric, right? I think you went from, maybe a good player without a lot of name recognition to now a very well known and well regarded player. What do you think led to that quick rise within the scene?
Well, it's hard to say. I think that a lot of my skills I was developing outside of the game. So I was playing like an arcade game called Zone Control. It's an arcade game in StarCraft 2, and it's very mechanical and strategical as well. And I became like there's like a small tournament scene for that. I became very good at it. And then I tried my hand at ladder because that scene started to fizzle out. And I just very quickly got the grasp of it. I already had the mechanics somewhat, like at least the clicking part. So it was just up to me to figure out the builds and the strategy. And yeah, it was. I practiced a lot. It was during my school year as well when I first really started practicing for StarCraft 2, and I kind of just like forgot about my school stuff and just practiced more StarCraft 2 instead. And yeah, I got really good really quickly because of that. And yeah, it was good.
Does it mean a lot to you that you have garnered so much respect within the community? Now you're competing in WTL alongside Serral at this point. Does that mean a lot to you?
Yeah, of course, it was a really big surprise that when Serral and Raynor joined my team, and suddenly I'm playing with some of the best players in the world. So yeah, it was a big change for me, and yeah, I'm really happy to be here where I am right now.
Awesome. How'd you end up getting involved with StarCraft in the first place?
Well, well, my dad played StarCraft 2 when it first came out, and I would watch him play, and my brother also started playing, but they wouldn't let me play because it was rated teen, and I was like 12 at the time, so they wouldn't let me play at first, but eventually as I got older, they let me play, and yeah, that's how I got into it. So it's just my family.
Was your dad or your brother like relatively high level or not really?
No, not really. They're both like Gold League or something. I don't know.
Oh, that's funny. So quite a disparity.
Yeah, yeah, they weren't competitive. I don't think my brother plays anymore, so.
Makes sense. Have you ever really been dedicated to any other like gaming communities outside of StarCraft?
Well, outside of StarCraft arcade games, like I would really be into a lot of StarCraft arcade games before I went pro, and yeah, I became like really good at a lot of these arcade games and never really tried ladder until later. I play a lot of other games too, but I wouldn't say I'm like deeply involved with the community of them. Like I like CS:GO and like all these other normal games that everyone else plays, but yeah, I'm not deeply involved in them.
Somebody had mentioned to me that you played a lot of the rhythm game Osu.
Yeah, I used to play that quite a bit during the same time period which I was rising in StarCraft 2. It was just a really fun game for me, and I got pretty good. Like I was like a four digit, which means I'm probably like top 1 or 2%. But yeah, I mean, I went pro in StarCraft 2, so I just had to stop playing OS. So now I almost never play.
Makes sense. Yeah, you gotta pick one lane.
Yeah, there's very rarely players who can go pro in two completely separate games. I've never even heard of that happening, so it's very hard.
Yeah, no. The only thing that comes to mind for me is like some people have said that TY was going to try to go pro back in Brood War as well as StarCraft 2 at the same time, but of course there's a lot more similarities between Brood War and StarCraft 2 than StarCraft and Osu.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you'll never hear someone playing pro level Valorant and pro level StarCraft or pro level chess and then pro level Valorant. Like, yeah, it's just unheard of, I think. But I would love to hear about someone who has done that.
Yeah, that would be incredible. So,
Yeah,
how'd you end up getting connected with the guys over at Basilisk?
well, the first time that Basilisk made themselves known to the public was in Home Story Cup last year, and I was also at the Home Story Cup. And yeah, they talked to some of the players, including me. They asked me some questions, and and later, a couple months, like maybe a few months later, they emailed me saying they're interested in me as a player, and we had more interviews, and they decided that I was someone that they wanted on the team. So that's how I got on. But yeah, the first time was definitely Home Story Cup.
Interesting. So, does being teammates with Serral and Raynor mean that you guys are practicing a lot together?
Yeah, I mean, I practiced quite a bit with Serral.
Do you think your PVZ has seen really significant improvement since becoming teammates with them?
I wouldn't say significant yet. Like I've made improvements, but it's still like one of my weaker matchups, and I think it's just my style is not very good in that matchup right now, and I'm trying to figure things out. But I've learned a lot from it, and yeah, it's been helpful.
What do you think is holding you back in the matchup?
Well, I mean, I'm not even sure how weak my matchup is in PvZ right now. The thing is, I'm practicing against Serral, so like even if I'm making a lot of improvements, I'm still gonna get destroyed.
Yeah,
So it's hard to tell because I just haven't played that much PvZ in tournaments lately as well. It's they very rarely do Zergs play in these open cups and stuff like that, so it's just hard to find Zerg players in there. But I just think that it's very difficult right now for me because I'm like a very aggressive player at least initially, and yeah, it's I find it very difficult to be aggressive in this matchup right now since the Zergs have really locked down the early game and like to go mass Zerglings as a defense, and that kind of shuts down any stalker pressure. So yeah, it's been tough.
that makes sense. Definitely, I think a lot of Protosses seem to be struggling with that matchup. For a while anyway.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess Hero has like been one of the few processes to really show that it's doable, but even he's struggling a little bit more now lately. I think he used to get like so much damage as his oracles every single game, but Zergs have finally like gotten used to his oracle movement and stuff, so it's just been getting harder and harder to get damage as oracles. So yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Those couple percent differences make a huge difference at the highest levels. But
Okay.
how far do you feel your skill gap is between other pro tosses, like maybe Creator, Showtime, other top tier tosses?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I think there's like I would say like Showtime or Creator is like one or two levels above me for sure. And I think a lot of that comes down to just they have a better grasp of the game and they really know what works and just how like the right decisions to make. Mechanics wise, I wouldn't say that they're like way above me, but I think what really comes down to is their strategy and their clean build orders and they know exactly what they want to do in every matchup in every game. So yeah, I think that's where the difference is.
So it's really just like experience, strategies, decision making.
Yeah, they've really figured out their own style and they know what they want to do. I'm still struggling a bit with what I want to do sometimes. So
That makes sense. I mean, everything comes with experience. Um, so is StarCraft like a full time job for you right now?
yeah, I'm full time in StarCraft 2 right now. I dropped out of university. Well, I finished my first year and then didn't do the second year yet. So um, I haven't decided whether or not I'm gonna go back to university yet. But for now, I'm just practicing StarCraft 2 and see how that goes.
That's awesome. I mean, I think nobody really expected a high level, like, global competitor to rise up out of the NA scene, really, for several years now. It's been pretty stagnant. What led you to dedicate yourself so heavily to StarCraft 2 at this point, in the scene?
Well, I didn't really like school, so I was trying to find an alternative, and I was happening to get very good at StarCraft at the same time. And I my first DreamHack that I tried to qualify for, maybe it was my second, I don't know, but I qualified for it and I made playoffs in my first DreamHack ever. And I was like, looking at these results, I thought that I could maybe make something of it. So I took a chance and that's what happened. But it's obviously a very risky thing to, not continue with school. So
Yeah, no, it's admirable for sure. So would you consider spending some time in Korea to like compete in GSL or train with some Koreans?
yeah, I mean, I would definitely consider it. With the recent GSL funding cuts and stuff, that made me pretty certain that wasn't goes this year. But just for the practice, I think it could be useful. And one other issue I have with going to Korea is just there's some visa issues because technically I'm a citizen, which makes me liable to go to military if I go to Korea
Yeah.
or something. So yeah, it's a very complicated situation, but I'm trying to like apply for visas and like it's exemptions, hopefully, so that if I ever do go to Korea, I can go.
Yeah, I know. I've definitely something I've heard a lot with Korean nationals who are abroad. Um, so that's unfortunate. But I mean, I guess the prize pool situation has been remedied to a certain extent with the crowdfunding contributions. But that doesn't exactly solve your visa issues. Um, but anyhow, so you've made some pretty deep runs in events, this year and over the last 2 years or so. Would you say you have any really specific goals as a player for the remainder of 2023?
Well, I think my goal for sure is to win the DreamHack NA portion. I think I was really close this year. It's just really unlucky that I got Australia in the first round, and it was a close series, but he ended up winning the whole tournament instead. But maybe if I had beaten him there and I already beat Special in the group stage, which would have been my next opponent, maybe there was a chance. But yeah, it wasn't happening this season. But there's one more season of NA DreamHack, and yeah, that'll be my goal is to win that one. But other than that, just getting good results or better results than last year in general is always the goal.
Makes sense. I think that that seems very achievable for you, though. It seemed like Australia was kind of falling off, and now it seems like he's playing really, really well again. So it's difficult to gauge.
Yeah, he's just I think he's a very talented player, and there's like some players who just don't really rust even if they take breaks, and he's one of those guys I feel like. So he's always just going to be someone who's solid. So yeah,
Did you follow the competitive scene a lot prior to getting at a high level yourself?
a little bit, but not a lot. Like I would there would be like gaps when I would follow it or not. Like when I was really young, I think I followed it quite a bit. Like I would watch. I think I watched online. I watched Flash win IEM Toronto, and then I just probably after that I just kind of stopped watching. I was doing other stuff and occasionally just watching a random game maybe. But yeah, there's only a couple of player names that I knew and not all of them for sure.
Sure. So it's interesting. I didn't know. I mean, I knew that you lived in Canada, but I didn't know that you were, I guess, born in Korea.
Now I was born in Canada, but
Oh,
still got Korean citizenship because that's just how it works. And so yeah,
nice. That's pretty interesting. Obviously, Brood War and Starcraft One were like a huge cultural phenomena in South Korea. Do you think that is related to why, like, your dad and your brother, and obviously subsequently you, got into Starcraft Two, or do you
oh
think
yeah,
it's not really related?
yeah, it's definitely. I mean, StarCraft is such a huge thing in South Korea, or at least it used to be. So I doubt my dad would. If my dad was born from like a different country, he probably would never heard of it. Probably would never played it, and I would never played it. So yeah, it's probably affected,
Yeah.
my interest in StarCraft.
Do you know if your dad like followed the Brood War scene back in the day, or not so much?
I don't know if he did or not. I don't think he followed it too much though. I mean, he was probably in school during the time.
But so what are your thoughts on like the overall balance of StarCraft Two at the moment?
I definitely think it's pretty close. Like it's definitely not like hugely favoring any side or anything, but maybe I'm biased because I'm Protoss, but I think Protoss is a little weak right now, to be honest. Maybe that's biased, but I don't even think it's that Protoss players can't win. It's just I just feel like there's less potential with Protoss, and if the opponent doesn't make any mistakes and you don't make any mistakes, the Protoss probably loses. Of course, no one's gonna make zero mistakes, but it feels like as a Protoss player, you have to be a bit tricky and make plays to win, and so it's just harder to be that. What do you call it? Like a initiator in that sense.
That makes sense. What do you feel like your like strongest and weakest matchups are at the moment?
Well, my best matchup is definitely against Terran because, well, I'm not even sure why exactly, but I just do well against Terran. I think it's because I play very much the same build orders against Terran every time. I can play like this one solid build order every time, and that's fine. While in other matchups, you have to learn all sorts of build orders because if you do the same thing every time, you're just going to get countered. But against Terran, I think it's okay to just play 2-gate Blink with a quick third base, and you can't really get punished for it. So that's what I usually do, and I have had pretty good results. Like lately, I beat Beyond and Gumiho in the EPT, so it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Um, so I'm assuming you're following the community updates and pending release of Stormgate. Is that true?
I mean, I'm kind of following it, but there's not that much information. But once Stormgate comes out, I am looking forward to at least trying it, and if I like it, and if there's a pro scene, then I would be willing to try that as well.
Fair enough. Is there anything in particular about that game that you're sort of excited for, or not enough information out there yet?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely no information. I mean, there's no gameplay footage yet, so we don't know for sure. But I'm hoping that it's just StarCraft 2, but better. It's kind of like what Valorant did to CS:GO, just like quality of life changes and better graphics, and just like upgrades to everything.
If you had like a piece of advice to give to the Stormgate development team, do you think you'd have something insightful to say to them?
I mean, I'm sure they know everything because they are the same people who made StarCraft 2. But I would say that just like sticking to the core concept of StarCraft 2 is really important, and I think what makes RTS so enjoyable is that it is hard and is really mechanically taxing. So I hope that they don't go too far with like the automatic macro stuff and that I've heard of, and they keep the game still challenging and mechanically difficult. So that's what I hope.
Fair enough. Well, this was a short little sweet interview we did here. So thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Any closing words?
Yeah, I just wanted to shout out Basilisk. They've been doing so much for the community. They host Big Brain Bouts every week, and which is a huge support to the community and especially the lower levels, pro levels like semi-pro level. So yeah, huge shout out to them, and yeah, just hope everyone watching this will continue to enjoy StarCraft too.
For sure. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, of course. Okay.